Hi, I'm Matt Greenhouse with NASA's James Webb Space Telescope project. I'll be talking about the James Webb Space Telescope mission.
Kind of like a primordial Earth, sort of like an older Earth prior to a lot of the life forms. Like there are large-scale mountain ranges and huge lakes and whatnot.
As a kid, I was always interested in anything related to space, so I would constantly be reading books about the solar system.
Hello sir, my name is Tarryn Olivier from St. Paul's School, grade 5th. My question is, was Venus born before or after Earth? Please provide your inputs. Thank you.
Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Deeksha and I'll be moderating this session of the Indo-Finnish conference. I'm really fortunate to be part of this conference because it is featuring two highly experienced and distinguished panelists. We're joined by Mr. Pankaj Sudan, who is the founder of the Plenum School. We're also joined by Ms. Tarryn Olivier, who is an international educator and has worked across 3 different demographies. And we're really excited to be a part of having both of you here as well. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm looking forward to the discussion and the conversation that we have in store for us. However, before I move on, I also wanted to provide us with some context and the purpose behind the Indo-Finnish conference. So the conference is organized by Kalam Labs, and it is an initiative that has spread across 11 countries. And we've organized over 250 Indo-Finnish conferences with the intention of creating a space for dialogue between the heads of India's top schools, as well as with international educators around the idea of nurturing curiosity in young minds. We hope that these discussions will help parents and key stakeholders to understand the kind of pedagogical approaches that are taken not only in India, but also across the world. We're also really excited to announce that we've been awarded by the Finnish Ministry of Education for this initiative, and we've garnered a trusted following of over 20,000 international students who are equally interested and excited to learn and grow with us. So with that, we can dive right in. And Mr. Pankaj, I'll ask you to start us off. Would you kindly please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey and your path to becoming an educator? What are some of the things that motivated and inspired you to make that decision?
Okay, thank you. But first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. So my journey as an educator was born out of a contradiction. On the one hand, I loved education. I was personally myself a very good student. I believe whatever I am is because of my education. And I belong to a normal, ordinary family. My parents were teachers. On one hand was this deep passion and love for education. And on the other hand was a dark reality that Indian education system sucks. It is useless. Now, it is easy to criticize. It is easy to talk about it, but I always want to do something about it. So, therefore, my journey came out as a result of this contradiction. On the one hand, loving it, and on the other hand, being skeptical about some meaningful change being brought about because of my dissatisfaction. But just because I was a good student, I was a National Talent Scholar, and I was also a National Scholar awarded by the Government of India. And that was big. And I also got into Indian Civil Services, which is one of the toughest exams in the world, at par with the Chinese Civil Services, if I understand correctly. But then, these things become ornamental. Becoming a part of civil service is very good for the ego. But, this dream of education and all this, that got sidetracked. But then I quickly realized in 5-10 years that civil services, howsoever sweet it is, howsoever nice it is, it doesn't pay you well. Then I got into the private sector and I worked with the topmost companies of the world, companies like ICICI Bank in India, which is an Indian multinational, or GE, which is again the huge, very well-respected multinational, or Royal Philips or Royal DSM. So my journey then, in 2014, I realized I don't have 10,000 years to live on this earth. Maybe I have a limited time. And I was just postponing. I was telling lies to myself that I will open a school, I will get into education, but when? So then I took it up with urgency and I said, I must leave everything to start a school. So together with a bunch of people who were similarly placed, who wanted to do something for this world, not for India, not for anything, for the world, to change the world, we said, okay, let's try and set up a school. So then we started off, then we bought a piece of land in Himachal Pradesh, somewhere in the hills, it's in the jungles. So there we've opened a school. So this is my journey as an educator. So the school is still in the works. So we've set up this school. It's an international boarding school.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Pankaj. And it's been quite an interesting story that you shared with us. I think I share the same kind of contradiction that you share, simply because I know that I have so much love and passion for education as well. But then I'm faced with this reality of our colonial education system that we have inherited from our colonization, that we need to now start moving towards shedding this and improving the education system so that we can benefit from it as citizens. So thank you so much, Mr. Pankaj, for sharing that, and I look forward to the discussion that is going to come forth from here. Ms. Tarryn, would you also kindly please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey and your path to becoming an educator?
Absolutely. So my journey, now that I'm reminded, was very similar to what has already been said. So I have always been interested in education. I've always loved learning, and right through primary school, right through high school, I always tried to be involved in as many mentoring and tutoring initiatives taken by my school. But I have been reminded that I absolutely hated school. I really did. I did not enjoy going to school. I loved learning, but I didn't love the way that schooling was for me when I was in school. And so I kind of assumed that I would be the person that would change that. I think we all have these big dreams when we are younger. And so when I finished high school, I went on to studying education. I then worked in the very same high school that I attended. Very fortunate enough for that, because I was able to learn from some of the teachers that I absolutely loved in school, but I was also able to learn from those that I didn't enjoy too much. And so it was a good opportunity for me to figure out how I wanted to be as a teacher, but also how I didn't want to be as a teacher. And so when the opportunity arose for me to travel abroad, I realized that my love for travel and my love for teaching could be done simultaneously. And so I lived and worked in China and the Philippines for a short period of time, and just got to experience different kinds of curriculums, different kinds of students, different kinds of colleagues. And very fortunately enough for me, it was such a good opportunity for me to learn. And that's one of the biggest motivations in my career, is the fact that I'm always a lifelong learner. And I'm always curious and motivated to buy the idea of linking learning to life and linking life to learning. And I think that is one of the greatest motivations for me currently. I know that our lives have changed drastically since the pandemic. And now I am completing a postgraduate degree in education technology, and I hope to move with the times and just to evolve with the way education is evolving. So I'm very lucky. I'm looking greatly forward to the future of education.
Thank you, Ms. Tarryn. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I completely agree. I think as educators, we're not just educators and teachers, but we're also co-learners, because we learn so much along this journey, and our students teach us so much as well. And I think that's just one of the most beautiful parts of being an educator, the lifelong learner bit. So thank you so much, Ms. Tarryn, for sharing that. As educators, all of us have our own pedagogical approach and philosophy towards education. And Mr. Pankaj, I'll ask you to start us off again. But what are some of the methods and initiatives that you take at your school in order to nurture curiosity in young minds? What are some of the approaches to engage students?
Sure. So for that, may I, with your permission, I've made up something of a PowerPoint kind of a thing. So could I
Yes, of
use my screen? Yeah, thank you.
I think you should be allowed to share, so you should have that permission.
Is that...
So you are the co-host
share
in this way.
Yep,
Yeah.
I am. Okay, here we are. There we go. So, I hope you can all see this.
Yes.
Very handsome man on the right hand side is me in our school library. Well, don't laugh, I am handsome. At least. So,
Very.
yeah, so here we go. So the agenda is, what's Einstein? Einstein is a master, right? What does he say on curiosity? What is our school's vision? And as I said, I believe my job as I see as the founder of the school is to ensure that my teachers and my staff in the school, they are happy, they are curious. I cannot teach all students, I would love to, but unfortunately somebody has to do the donkey's job, so I do the donkey's job, so that my teachers are happy, they can live forward the philosophy that I think. Then how does my location and curriculum lend itself to learning? And finally, if you have any more questions. So what does Einstein say? He says it's nothing short of a miracle that modern methods of instruction have not yet entirely strangled the holy curiosity of mankind. And Einstein is somebody who's a philosopher, who's a scientist, all rolled into one. That's Einstein speaking of a Swedish, maybe a Swiss system. Swiss schools are decent. What if he was born in an Indian school and had seen what goes on in our Naru country? So it's a miracle that people in India can still talk of curiosity, despite being, crazy kind of education system. So what do I do? So we need to admit somebody. Just a sec, please. So the Plenum School vision, our vision is, we envision a better world. When I thought about the school, I did not think about a school. I thought about the world. I think about an institution. The Plenum School is not a school for me. For me, it's an institution building exercise. I always thought global, because we have so much to learn from the world. And this is such a small world that we inherit, that we need to learn, give, and collaborate. So it was all, my vision is always global. Then a learning attitude in our children, an intellectual and reflective mindset. So if you don't, that is the whole purpose of education according to me. That if you're not reflective, then no amount of degrees are useful to you. You're not a human being, you're not being educated. And of course, a personality that is balanced. If you're not a genius, if you're an ordinary person, which most of us are, we much rather be balanced. So this is the vision of the Plenum School, which we've started with. And how do I do this? So when I thought about all this, I said, as I mentioned in the beginning, my entire focus is my teachers. It is not my students, because I know teachers will live this dream. So I'm trying to create structures in an ecosystem. What are my structures? To ensure that we make a school that is like no other that people have seen. So that structure is, it'll be flat and non-hierarchical. I've seen schools, especially in our part of the world and traditional societies. So They're so hierarchical. The school principal walks in, everybody stands up. The management thinks they're cat's whiskers. Right? So I didn't want it. So we are on first name basis, most of us. So I insist that my teachers call me by my name, so that at least that part of the equation is taken care of. And I've seen the best multinationals. They're doing very well, but they're not hierarchical. And I've seen small, little, piddly little Indian companies think so much of themselves and go nowhere in life. Similarly, we are cool as a school. I didn't want to see education is very boring otherwise. Life is meant to be fun. So what we do is, we have a lot of parties. So my dream is, Tarryn, you'll be happy to know, I studied in Asian Institute of Management, which is one of the top schools in the Philippines. So I love Philippines. So, we used to say that, study hard, play harder, party hardest. So that school that cannot be happy, that is not joyful, that cannot party, doesn't know what education is, what living is. And I want to create a structure which is enabling, which is not controlling. So for example, last year one of our teachers was unwell for 7 months. And by the way, we ran our school, we didn't close it down because our parents said, we want to be in the school, we want our teachers to be here, we want our students to be here, let's all be it. So we are happy in our jungle. So we did not think that, oh my God, the teacher has to be here. I know, seriously, he was not well. And personally, I told him, I don't care about education, forget it, you take care of yourself. This classroom and education, this can come. So we want to create a very enabling environment, a structure that helps my teachers' curiosity. This structure that we're trying to build in this school, this is how curiosity is kindled. And not in every teacher, not in every person. I know that. But that's okay. If we could do it in some, it's fine with us. Second is, how is the ecosystem? I know it's very difficult to be curious. It is easy to think, but what would you be curious about? So I enable reading. I personally read a lot. And I've told my teachers that please, to me, a good teacher is somebody who reads. Maybe 2 novels a month. That's what we are thinking. Besides the normal, usual work, and our teachers have lots of work because we are a boarding school. So they are parents, they are friends, they are philosophers, they are guides, they are mentors to the young students. So they are busy. But even if they were busy, I insist that they read up. And it starts with me. Otherwise, I'm a hypocrite myself if I don't read. And if my teachers don't read, they're not my teachers. They have no future in our school. And I'm very blunt with my teachers in this. So whether on the one hand we are enabling, we are nice, we have parties, but I also know that if we need to be, if teachers need to have a vision, have a sense of wonder, they need to read up. Books are distilled wisdom. And then we do something called astachal. Astachal is when the sun goes down every day evening. The whole school sits down on a hillock or on the rooftop and they just contemplate for 5-10 minutes. I'm very clear that it's not going to make people very reflective. But even if it were to do some of them, even a minute a day, maybe 300 minutes is not bad. How many of us do this for ourselves? Even I can't do it sometimes. So my sense is when this structure and ecosystem will create in our teachers, will nurture them with vision, with curiosity, with a sense of wonder. So this is the thought that I create this structure, then, So now, I have this beautiful location, as I said, I'm in a jungle. Okay. I can cry about it, We can also, my God, there's nothing around this. Look at this place. It's cold sometimes, it's damp, it has lots of rain, it has snakes as your neighbors. So what do? I say, okay, I'll use it. So, for example, I took my kids out 3 days, 4 days back for a little walk. And they were young children, class 4, 5, 6. They said, what is algae? I said, I don't know what's algae. Who knows what algae is? So then they said, oh, algae. I said, I don't know. Go. Today, Google is a better teacher than I am. So I said, find out on Google, can you eat algae? So they came back to me saying, oh, let's see, cook algae. Or we found a long snake. I use all these as teaching aids. Right? It is, how does a snake remove its skin? Or we take water from a stream, beautiful water. So I invite all of you, by the way, to the school to enjoy this place. Or we take regular treks. Now, if this is not learning, if this is not curiosity, if this does not kindle in somebody, then maybe either we are wrong or this kid needs a re-examination. Then, besides this, the curriculum. So we chose a global curriculum. If you look at our vision, it was global. So therefore, I did not want to be tied down in small little things that, okay, India and India is great. No, India is great in its own way. So I chose Cambridge as a curriculum for us. So that we need to be exposed. Our children need to be exposed. I need to be exposed and our teachers need to be exposed to as to what is going on in the world. So, Deeksha, sorry to disappoint you. So I'm getting more colonial here. So
no worries. It's
but yeah, till grade 8, we do our own stuff. We keep fiddling around with our books. We find out whatever we like and we teach our children. So basically these 2-3 things I do. My sense is this will create a sense of curiosity in my teachers, and therefore it will lead to a sense of curiosity in our students. So with this, I'm done. Thank you so much. This is a picture of our cute students. So they're smiling, they look happy. Okay, thank you so much. This is.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pankaj, for sharing that. And I really enjoyed your presentation, and I'm sure that our audience did as well. So many things that you said, and I really appreciate the kind of pedagogical approach that you've taken, because it starts with the structure. As you very correctly said, we need to lower these hierarchies and move towards a horizontal hierarchy first in order to allow teachers that agency within classrooms as well, so that they can practice what they want to and have that freedom to explore for their own curriculum. And I completely agree. I love reading and I'm a big advocate for it. So I really appreciate that you have that in your curriculum as well. And yes, I am going to take you up on that invite at some point. I will come and visit your school. But thank you so much for sharing, Mr. Pankaj. I really enjoyed that presentation. Ms. Tarryn, what are some of the approaches that you take at your school in order to nurture curiosity, even pre-pandemic, but then putting that in the context of the pandemic as well? So what are some of the challenges that you faced during the pandemic, and then some opportunities that came out of it?
So I absolutely appreciate what Mr. Pankaj has said. I think it's amazing everything that is taking place and happening in his school. I have made a few notes because I just wanted to refer to the things that really stood out to me. And the first one is inculcating a learning attitude. I think this is so important with our students when we allow them to become independent in their learning. And I know this goes hand in hand with enabling, not controlling, but I think this is so important. As teachers, traditionally, we took control of our classroom environment. We would stand in front of the classroom and just lecture our students. But I do think that those roles have reversed now, and we're more the facilitator than in control. And I think that students being independent in their learning, having the ability to reflect and have balance, they're going to be innately curious anyway. And so I think that's such a good way to kind of maintain and nurture that curiosity. I also think that it's such an interesting perspective to take in nurturing teachers' curiosity before students. I think that's incredible. I haven't really had this discussion with someone before where they've taken it from that perspective. So just hearing you say that, I've really thought outside of the box now, and I'm thinking how important it is for teachers to actually be the first step in that process. Because if we are nurturing teachers' curiosity, teachers are going to demonstrate that behavior in the classroom, and then the children are going to repeat that behavior. And I think that that's something I've touched on briefly in the past, but I do think I need to give it more thought, because it's so interesting that if we are curious as teachers, our students are going to be curious. If we ask questions, they are going to ask questions. If we want to explore and experience, they are going to want to explore and experience, because at the end of the day, we are their role models. So what we do is what they are going to do. And I think that's so powerful, and it really does need more attention in the education system. With regards to methods I have used in my classroom, is very similar in that I've always tried to achieve a experiential based classroom environment where students are able to learn from their environments. I know that this has also been mentioned by my colleague, but I think that's so important when we enable students the opportunity to discover their learning. And at the end of the day, that's what I want to achieve in my classroom, is allow students a safe environment for them to ask questions and for them to realize that making mistakes is not a problem. If you make a mistake, that's great. I want you to make a mistake, because that means that you are going to learn even more when you're correcting that mistake and then continuing to ask questions. With regards to the pandemic, I think that nurturing curiosity during the pandemic was not as difficult to achieve as what teachers initially felt. Of course, teachers needed training, but our students at the end of the day really love technology. And so if you can bring technology into the lessons, they are going to be curious, because anything with regards to technology, they absolutely love. So it was just maintaining that sort of questioning environment where students are free to express themselves, take responsibility for their learning, reflect on their learning, experience learning. So I think that it wasn't too different. A challenge that I specifically faced was, without mentioning the global challenges we all faced when it comes to accessibility to education, accessibility to Wi-Fi or electricity or devices. I think those are things we all faced. But one thing in particular that I really think needs more attention to is the social and emotional needs of our students. I think one of the biggest challenges was trying to maintain sociability in such an isolated environment. And of course, we had things like virtual tours or virtual exhibitions, virtual talent shows, but they're not really the same. I think the basic human qualities of being able to share or being able to hold a conversation, those are things that our students really struggled with coming back to school after the pandemic. In saying that, one of the biggest highlights, I hope I'm answering all the questions. One of the biggest highlights for me was just the fact that the pandemic forced us into using technology that was always there, but we were never really using it beforehand. And I think that it's made learning so boundless and so limitless. We are no longer confined by the four walls of our classroom. We are now able to have a discussion with someone in India or someone in the UK or someone in Australia as if that person is sitting right next to you. And I think that that's something we would never have really achieved had it not been for being forced into technology, which is what the pandemic did. And I hope that education doesn't regress in that. I hope we continue to collaborate. I hope we continue to bring the world together in the way that we have.
Absolutely, Ms. Tarryn. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, not only of about the pandemic, but also pre-pandemic. And I can only agree with when you say that we need to create an environment that is safe for students to ask questions, so that we don't reprimand and punish them for asking questions, but we encourage and acknowledge those questions, because in those questions lie that curiosity. And I think as schools, we often tend to extinguish that by saying that no more questions, or I can't answer this. And it's fine not to answer, but at least as long as you're acknowledging it and you're accepting it, I think it's important. And very true that the pandemic has pushed us and thrown us into technology, and we've adapted and embraced it. This conference is a testament to that, as we all are collaborating across borders. But I think it's here to stay, and I think it's one of the positives that came out of the pandemic. So thank you so much, Ms. Tarryn, for sharing that. Mr. Pankaj, what has your experience been like with the pandemic? Did you have similar challenges, or did you have a unique set of challenges and then some opportunities that came out of it as well?
Yeah, so pandemic did affect all of us. So the primary challenge that I saw was we didn't know what we were getting into. Nobody in this world knew the words like lockdown, was like Zoom learning. Now it's second nature. But just imagine, we didn't know this. So, and we didn't know how long would it last. If we knew that it's going to last 1 year, you prepare yourselves completely. And of course, I saw the death and destruction that happened in India. Of course, it happened all over the world, but in India, I know of India more, so I can speak. So, pandemic did affect livelihoods. And if your life is at stake, I think curiosity in school is the last thing you would be thinking about. You'd be more worried about your own life, your children's, your near and dear ones. So that is not surprising. That's understandable. But long term, yes, the uplift is given to technology. Right? So that was wonderful. That, now how do we collaborate across borders? It's easy. Maybe we would have never done it. So this thing was a big plus. But yes, I understood that the parents, not the children, but the parents did feel the loss of incomes, and therefore hesitancy on the part of a parent to be sending a child to school. So it continues even now at one level, although it's subsided. But then, of course, things will come back to normal, I guess, as well. So, but yes, technology and the use of technology has been the biggest pluses. But the general fear was difficult.
Sure, sir. And just like you mentioned earlier on as well, that these were not the norms wherein Zoom learning and all of these methods, and of course lockdown, these were not the normal words that were used, but now they are a bit of a norm due to the, of course, circumstances. But definitely everyone adapted to it. Like you mentioned, even your school educators, students, everyone did adapt to it. Now we'll move on to the last question of the session. And Tarryn Olivier, ma'am, I'd like to ask you first is that what would be your vision for a utopian education system?
So my vision for a utopian education system would be one where students are encouraged and taught morals, values, ethics, as much as they are encouraged and taught how to be successful professionals one day. I think it's so important that we pay attention to students developing as good people and as good global citizens, as much as being successful one day. I know that our students need academics. I know that they need to succeed in their academics too, but I do think it's important for us to teach students life skills, how to be adaptable and how to be sustainable. I read an article recently where 60% of the careers our students are going to be working in one day have not yet been invented. So the real question is, why are we preparing them for careers that do not yet exist? Instead, we should be preparing them on how to be good people, how to be sustainable in the future, and to have life skills, how to look after themselves. I think it's so important that we pay less attention on academic performance and more attention on just happiness. Students who are happy to learn, students who want to learn, students who are independent. And in saying that, I hope that one day we are able to reimagine assessments and pay less attention on how to gets our students to memorize content and come back and just regurgitate the content that they have memorized, and rather find ways for them to demonstrate their understanding. Students are so different, and we need to assess holistically that encompasses all the different kinds of learning styles and learning paces of our students. I think we pay a lot of attention to successful being a doctor or a lawyer or a scientist, but I think successful is also the chef or the YouTuber or the landscaper. I think that we need to focus on success being determined by who's a good person rather than what grades they're achieving at school.
For sure, ma'am. And just like you mentioned that since everyone will have a different definition of success, different point of interest, so a standardized examination doesn't help them, because for them success might be to have more subscribers on their YouTube channel. For someone it would be, of course, to get good grades. So standardized examination doesn't help them. Pankaj sir, what would be your vision for an ideal education system?
Yeah. So first, I would remove the word utopian. It's normal, no? One, asking, well, everything that Tarryn has said, take it. Because asking somebody to be a good human being is not being utopian. It's being normal, human, right? Second, to me, there is no contradiction between being great as a human being and being successful. I tell my students that, listen, go out and be the best student that you can ever be. But don't be a bastard in the process. You'll never ever want to be the world's biggest, richest Bill Gates, or even if you become one, so what? There'll be another Bill Gates after you. So it's okay. It's okay to be successful. We should all be very, very successful. We should always, but also be great human beings. Second, what Bhagavad Gita says, or what any scripture or what any real great book of knowledge would tell you: live in the moment, enjoy the moment. You're not here for eternity. So while you're going to be a great student, a great professional, a great this thing, the process is important. Live that process up, because you never know when you might have another lockdown and you might just crave for normal, usual things in life. So my thing for the education system is what I do even now at the Plenum School, that it's global. It should make you reflective. It should make a balanced personality, and maybe enjoy in the process. Nothing more, nothing less. Thank you.
Definitely, sir. I think the things that you mentioned, that of course it's fine to be successful, it's fine to be accepting to what that makes you happy. What is your definition to be happy, and what is your definition to have your success accordingly. So on this positive note, I'll end the session recording. Just a second.